The wheel is an everyday object that is connected to many different artifacts that are responsible for the world we live in today. It is easy to dismiss its importance, but ultimately it is responsible for the beginnings of modern civilization. The wagon wheel brings the beginning of a new design for transportation. The wheel was invented in the BCE span. Explained in our society's reflection on historical facts, the wagon wheel design has been viewed based on diagrams on ancient clay tablets. The earliest known use of this essential invention was a potter's wheel that was used in Ur in Mesopotamia as early as 3500 BCE. The first use of the wheel for transportation was probably in Mesopotamia. In the article Wheel History Invention of the Wheel by Phil Armet, Armet discusses how the wheel was not only used in ancient Mesopotamia, but in many other regions as well, as it had been noticed before the wheel became an integral part of transportation. During the evolution of the wheel, more primitive rollers were changed into wheels over the course of time. In the process of doing so, wood became the grooves of the rollers were cut away to form an axle, and the wooden pegs were fastened to the runners of each side of the axle. When the wheels turned, the axles turned, as well in the space between the pegs. The first wooden cart was thus made. So once the pegs and the axle were added on, the wooden wagon became a useful source in the transportation of goods and people. In its essential form, the wagon was in common use for about 2,000 years, from the Romans of antiquity to the American pioneers of the 1700s. The wagon wheel was able to remain popular in the sphere of transportation because it was adept at carrying the weight of people, livestock, and other cargo, though this was to change with the invention of the automobile. One of the earliest examples of wheels on the first automobiles is Carl Benz' 1885 Benz Patent motor wagon. This vehicle was comprised of 3 wheels, which were bicycle-like in nature, with wire spokes fitted with hard rubber. Though these wheels were an improvement from the unreliable wooden wagon wheels from the pioneer days, They still did not allow for a smooth ride for any passengers. Great changes were made to the automobile wheels, with the introduction of rubber being used as the primary material. The founders of the Michelin Tire Company, André and Edouard Michelin, being the ones who came up with the concept of primarily using rubber. More changes were made to the material of the tire itself in 1910, when the B.F. Goodrich Company was able to produce longer tire life by adding carbon into the rubber material they used to make their wheels. These artillery wheels were later followed by the steel-welded spoke wheels in 1926 and 1927. The wheel itself had to change form to be able to transport heavier loads and glide over bumps more smoothly. The solution was to widen and strengthen the rim to accommodate a larger tire that could handle more weight. The solution for a smooth ride came in the form of a more sophisticated suspension system, consisting of a spring that maintained the vehicle's ride height and a shock absorber which compressed when bumps were driven over and expanded back to a normal length afterwards, absorbing the shock that would have otherwise been transferred into the frame. This provided dampening for the vertical travel of suspension to maintain a smooth ride in the passenger compartment. Thanks to the evolution of the wheel and the vehicles it has been mounted to over history, we're able to live the comfortable lifestyle that we live today. Without the wheel, it is difficult to tell where the world would be today.